This podcast is brought to you by Connect First Credit Union. I am really excited about today's show. We have a very, very special guest who I will be introducing in a moment. But, the spirit of What's Next Alberta is really about the future of our province. Like, what is the next decade going to look like? And we know it's going to be a decade of transition. We know there's going to be challenges, but we also know there's a lot of really good reasons to be optimistic. And in fact, we know one of the big areas that Alberta is already showing some really strong signs of success. We're seeing it in Calgary. We're seeing it actually in communities across our province, is this embrace of technology. And perhaps things like COVID have even accelerated that, but there's been a lot of work underway for a long, long time to get us here. And so from my perspective, technology, we have a lot of reasons to believe digital technology in general will be very successful. But in the spirit of abundance, we need more people embracing technology. We need more people who are willing to build careers in that space, go to university, college, to get on-the-job training in areas of technology. We need more people who are willing to start businesses in technology. And if we're going to really be successful, we need more people and embracing technology. And that means we need to get more women into technology too. And that leads me right up to introducing a very, very special guest, Kylie Woods, founder of Chic, blogger, programmer. She's done everything, I think. And I am so excited to have you here. Kylie, I've known you for a few years. You are an impressive individual. Thank you for making time for this show.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little about your journey. Tell me about yourself and what made you so passionate about starting something like Chic.
So I've got a background in communications, public relations from Mount Royal University. I'm a self-taught graphic and web designer, tech enthusiast, and Chic is a nonprofit that is committed to building gender diversity in technology. I call myself a bit of a reluctant entrepreneur, a reluctant social entrepreneur, because the story of Chic really began as a bit of a selfish need. Like, I was getting into tech, learning how to code, and I found it was a really kind of lonely and intimidating space to break into. I was fresh out of university. I was feeling, a little insecure in my skills and background. And so I was looking for a community of more women like me because I was struggling. And I thought, if I'm struggling, there's got to be other young women who are struggling. And I don't want anyone to feel the way I'm feeling right now. So I'm going to do something about it. And that kind of, I'm going to make a change, was really where Chic started, and is kind of the heart of community, of, that inclusivity, you belong here, a space to find other like-minded folks. That is the heart of our community.
You made it look easy, but I imagine it wasn't that easy initially. Tell us about when you decided, I'm going to go out and change the world. How did that go? Tell us your story.
I didn't realize that we were really anything. And that's a really good point, Wellington, about it always looks easy when you're on the outside looking in and you don't know all the hard work that's gone into it. So I was working full-time in communications roles and marketing, branding for the first 3 years of Chic. It was this project on the side of my desk. And I remember I would wake up at 5, 6 in the morning, go to my Chic office, which was a coffee shop, do my day job, and then go back to a coffee shop after work and do that on the weekends. It was just this long cycle. There was a lot of hours put in. I mean, there were some amazing folks that made it possible. We had some awesome volunteers, champions, supporters along the way, but it really was just a willingness to roll up my sleeves and put the time in. And Chic has grown over 8 years. That's a long time. It's not this overnight success. It's a lot of time to grow. So time.
So back in the pre-COVID days, I had the great opportunity to attend some of the geeky summits, which were incredible. Hundreds, it must have been potentially thousands of people in the room sometimes. It was just huge, incredible. So, you've had a big impact. So you've made it look easy. I know it's not been easy, but tell us a little bit about the fact you attracted that many people, show how many women are really interested in technology, want to be in the technology field. Tell us a little bit about the barriers women are facing to get into it.
Even taking a step back from that, Wellington, let me paint the picture a little bit. Women typically represent anywhere from kind of 25, 29% of information communication technology roles. Okay, not bad. That number hasn't changed in about 10 years. Okay, well, is that really that long? When you think about the fact that women now represent, there are more women enrolled in post-secondary than there are men. And the explosive growth of technology roles, the fact that that number hasn't changed in 10 years is really concerning. And the reason, you mentioned we need more women in tech. Well, why is that? From a Chic Geek perspective, tech has the power to shape our lives. It touches our personal moments from the second we wake up to the alarm on our phone, all the way through our work. And it's probably the last thing we touch before we go to bed. It shapes our lives, it shapes our work, it shapes our future. And we want women's voices to be part of building that future so we can create a more inclusive world. That's really where this drive comes from. Research has shown that it's estimated 1 million women are leaving tech every year. So in addition to not having enough women entering the field, the ones we already have are leaving. That's huge. So why are they leaving? A lot of factors. But what we've learned over our transformation year at Chic Geek is that there's this lack of visibility to career advancement. It's this kind of lack of clarity around what's next. How do I get there? And a lot of this kind of belief of if she can see it, she can be it. But if there's no women in leadership or there's no other women on your tech team, there's this feeling of like, I'm never going to get there. There's no space for me there. And then we see this kind of mass exodus.
Which is the opposite of what we need if we're going to create that abundant future, right? Like where everybody's participating, bringing their best. When we're all participating, the pie gets bigger. There's more for everyone, right? And so we need to do more. So you mentioned the year of transformation at Chic Geek. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I feel this really aligns to the work that you're doing. And that actually we're seeing many organizations and companies going through with COVID, with the Alberta economy, a lot of transformation. We were in year 7 at Chic Geek, and we took a really hard look at what's the impact we're having? What's the engagement of our community? And we had to say, we're not hitting it. And we can continue as we are and try to keep making it work like this, or we can make a really scary decision to pivot. And so we took an entire year off. We stopped our programming like Geeky Summit. We let go of our volunteer team. We scaled back all of our external operations. And we came back to the heart of what do we want to do? What problem do we solve? How do we make change? And it felt like coming back to square one. It was like starting days at Chic Geek. And I was really scared that, are we going to come out of this transformation?
Right on, yeah.
So many questions, but we have come out. We are better for it, but it was a journey.
Maybe we can get personal a little bit on that, Kylie, for a minute. One of the things that we want to do on What's Next Alberta is inspire Albertans to take on the challenges of the future. Now, you've seen your share. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How have you kept yourself motivated to keep driving this? I mean, you're taking on the world in many respects. You're doing it right here in Alberta. What's it been like for you?
One of the things I've learned, Wellington, is that appetite for change can be really hard. External factors require so much heart energy to be like, yes, I can do that. I can scrap my original plan and build a new one and keep going. And sometimes there's only so many times you can do that before you just get really tired. So I think part of being able to adapt to change is also recognizing how much energy do I have to make change and pivot? Because I think sometimes we don't have the energy, and that's okay too. Okay, question back to you. Do you find that at all as well? What kind of energy do you need to bring to work every day and show up with as you're making these big changes at Connect First?
Wow. I think you're the first guest to turn a question around on me. So high five on that. Good for you. But, I believe in the importance of the work we're doing. And I believe that we have the potential to change the world. And if we really want to change the world, we have to get up every day, roll up our sleeves and go make it happen. And so personally, I can, and I think I'm talking back to you, the answer you kind of gave me, I think in many respects is that if it's important, I'm going to find the energy. And I just can't let my team down. I can't let our organization down. I can't let our members down. And in the bigger picture, I want to build a brighter future for my family, my children, my neighbors, my friends. And it means we all have to band together to make Alberta the best place we can. So my energy comes from that. I think Yeah. So people like you inspire me too. I should say this, Kylie. Like, so to be quite frank, it's really awesome when you look around and you see people who find that energy to change the world, like you have been for the last 7 or 8 years.
Thanks, Wellington. And to your point, though, being passion driven and feeling like your work has meaning and there's a cause bigger than yourself, like you, that is often what pulls me through the really hard moments and being able to connect those dots and have accountability to people beyond just myself, but to the Chic community, to the companies we work with and the women we serve. When things are dark, having that heart can get you through.
Kylie, when a lot of people who don't know Alberta very well start thinking about Alberta, they often think of like the stereotypical, Alberta of, we're all wearing cowboy hats. We're all stuck in this past world somewhere. But you've chosen Alberta to start a movement to change the way the world sees women in technology, to break down barriers, open doors. Why did you pick here and not somewhere else?
I wanted to be involved at growing something from the very beginning. And Alberta's tech ecosystem is like on the cusp. It is this really exciting, vibrant place to be right now. And there's a lot of potential. We have big dreams of growing more tech companies and the quality of those tech companies. There's this opportunity for Chic Geek and what we stand for around diversity, inclusion, supporting women in tech to be part of shaping how the future of our tech ecosystem or innovation ecosystem is perceived at a national and a global level. So I think why Alberta? Yes, it is kind of an unexpected place for tech, but that also is this great opportunity for impact and change and to leave a really positive legacy.
I love it. Are there any entrepreneurs, business leaders, you name it, anybody out there that inspires you?
Actually, I feel like I get a lot of inspiration from just these one-on-one conversations I've been having with all sorts of leaders and aspiring leaders, whether they're in tech or not. And the reason I feel that way, Wellington, is I've been asking folks this question of what kind of leader do you aspire to be? Like, how would other people describe you? And the responses I get back are, things like people would describe me as compassionate, kind, caring, a good listener. I make everybody's voice feel heard. And when I hear those things, it makes me so optimistic about the future leaders of our private sector, public sector, wherever they're working, because we're going to have these great leaders paving the way. And I'm just humbled to be surrounded by people who have these really great perspectives.
Now, the inspiration behind What's Next Alberta is to talk about the next decade. And so we're thinking about like what's possible, what's next. You want to put down any bets on predictions on what the future of Alberta will look like if you could fast forward to the year 2030 and look back?
Oh, that's a tough one, Wellington. Okay, I don't know what the future will look like, but I want to talk a little bit about what the journey might look like.
Go for
I
it.
think we're in this really interesting place where we have the opportunity to create a lot of definitions for ourselves. And this question really is, what is our definition of our successful future? But I think if we could be asking that at every step along the way and not just about what is the future of Alberta, questions like, what is the definition of success for myself as an individual, as a mom, as an entrepreneur? Because we really get to shape it right now. With a lot of uncertainty, chaos breeds certainty because we kind of start fitting the pieces together. That is human nature. And so I think by asking those questions of how do we define this for ourselves, that will start to shape it. So I don't know what that looks like, but I'm committed to asking that question over and over again.
And any predictions around what you're going to be doing with Chic Geek over the next few years? And prediction might be the wrong word because, I know none of us wants to jinx our future, right, by putting it out there. But obviously, you're going to continue changing the world. Kylie, what do you want to go and accomplish?
Chic Geek will be a national organization impacting change for women in tech across Canada. And we're going to see some really strong impact about its ability to actually retain women in tech. So maybe it's not 1 million women that we can keep in tech and in their tech careers, but if we can make a dent in that, that's powerful. And on a personal level, Wellington, I'm not going to lie, I'm always asking myself, like, is this the right journey for me? Because sometimes it's really hard. Being an entrepreneur is hard. And it seems like there are easier paths sometimes. And sometimes I'm tired. And so I think I will still be at Chic Geek if the role continues to evolve and challenge me and I can grow. But those are always things that I'm looking for in kind of a work capacity.
Is it okay if I also ask you a personal question? Because you were sharing with me before the show, you've got 2 little ones now. So what kind of future do you want to see for them?
I want them to grow up thinking the world is really big. So they're asking questions about how can they change the world, and they're focused on things outside of themselves. I also want them to grow up to be confident in all of the things they do. And so I think that comes down to a question of parenting, but also to what kinds of supports and peers, and how can they get that confidence from the world around them. Um, so I want to create a space, a community, a world where girls and women can grow up to be more confident. And tech is kind of the space that I want to play in.
And it's going to be such an important space for the decade to come and the decades beyond that, no question. Kylie, is there any messages you would like to make sure our audience hears from you, and that you'd want to make sure that they're aware of in the challenges that you're taking on?
I think that tech can be really intimidating. And I would know because I was coming from a non-technical background, and I'm still on that journey of learning to be more technical. But there's this mindset of, whether you're working in tech or any role that uses tech, which is now everything, this mindset of, okay, I can figure it out. I know how to Google. And I probably Google things like 100 times a day. I never have the answers. And so getting comfortable with that and knowing that, okay, I asked that question this way and I didn't get the answer I was looking for. So I'm going to ask it again this way. If you can really foster that commitment and that curiosity, that's the mindset that thrives in tech. And I think that's applicable to a lot of roles outside of tech as well. So a really critical kind of growth mindset to build. I've been thinking a lot about vulnerability and the place it holds in leadership. It's something important to me in terms of the culture I want to build at Chic Geek. But vulnerability and culture, I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts on that as you look to take Connect First culture to the next stage? Does vulnerability have a place for you, or can you paint a picture of what it would look like for me?
I'm honored you would even ask me that question, Kylie, someone who's done as much as you and who shows that personal vulnerability every day. And I think it's what makes you so real and I find inspiring. For us at Connect First, I think, if you're a skeptic, you say, like, is it possible? We want to reimagine what a credit union looks like for the 2020s. And it sounds so cliche and it sounds so like really, what's that mean? But like, I really believe in the last, 80 years ago, there was a time when credit unions, really came from a place where they were filling a gap because the banks weren't caring about people anymore. They had turned the whole business into a business of transactions. And unfortunately, in places like Alberta in the Dust Bowl of the 1930s, we were struggling. And credit unions came from that and put people first. And I fast forward to 2020, 2021, and we're looking ahead at a decade where we need to be putting people first in Alberta again. And yet the world's changed, right? It's not 1930s, it's the 2020s. And yet for the last 20 years or so, I think credit unions maybe have become a little bit more like banks than coming from that place of putting people in the center of it. But we're on a journey. We don't know how it's going to end exactly, but we're going to start by launching a new brand, and we're going to start by reimagining the value propositions we bring to our members. We're going to reimagine how we connect with our members and build relationships with them. And we're going to learn on the way. And if for our members, what I'm hoping they're going to experience is just a true passion for them, but recognizing that this is something that's going to evolve. We don't have all the answers. I don't. I don't think any of us do. But one of the reasons we're doing What's Next Alberta and having conversations like this is to learn together on the way and learn from great people like you. So I don't know if that answers your question, Kylie, but I'm really really grateful you have interest in Connect First. By the way, I do have one question for you, if you're willing, is like from your perspective, like what can a local financial institution like Connect First Credit Union do better to help more women in technology, women starting businesses, etc.?
I like what you said, Wellington, about putting people first and coming back to that as a core tenet. And that's something that really aligns with how we operate at Chic Geek, and what drove us through our transformation was like reconnecting with those people, having conversations, helping them, enabling them to inform what we do, how we do it, what's meaningful. And so whether it's this podcast or whether it comes out in some other ways, but having conversations with women in tech or different stakeholders, but the people that you serve and putting them at the center of how you design. I think about community at Chic Geek and how we've built that. And I know that Connect First is building this new community as well. And I'm like, what does that come down to? Communities make people feel like they are included, like they belong, like they're heard. And mostly they evoke a feeling. So what is the feeling that Connect First will evoke for, whether it's women in tech or other clients? And I asked that question about Chic Geek of what feeling do we evoke for our women in tech, for the companies that we work with? And we can capture that and bottle it up. We will be able to get through any kind of transformation or change, because that will be the thread that carries us through in terms of consistency and constancy.
I am so grateful to have you on the show. You are just such a natural for starters. Like, wow, like what a great presenter, public speaker. I've seen you on stage. You're an amazing human being. I feel very grateful that you were willing to spend a little bit of time with us on What's Next Alberta.
Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. Next steps. I really enjoyed that conversation with Kylie. I mean, she's got me thinking differently around, how we're going to solve problems differently. But one thing I really loved that she said is how Chic Geek really put people in the center of it. And they really thought more about how people feel about the challenges they were trying to overcome than just, the technical issues that people might be facing. And when I think to Connect First and the challenges we've got in the decade ahead as we're trying to reinvent ourselves to become like the credit union for the 2020s, we have to think differently too. And that means focusing less on the transactions and, things like bankers like to say, like financial health, which is what somebody's beacon score is and what have you, and more about their well-being and how they feel about their money, how they feel about the decisions that they're making that keep them up at night, for heaven's sakes. Like that is our role as a credit union, is to put people in the center of everything we do and help people live better lives in a way that they feel good about. And quite frankly, when we think about the collective anxiety so many of us have here in Alberta right now, we need to do better. And we're going to at Connect First Credit Union. Two, Kylie inspired me. Like, we have a really bright future ahead of us. And when you see leaders like her who are, rolling up her sleeves, she's rolling up her sleeves, and we see leaders like her rolling up their sleeves, we're going to have a big positive impact in transforming this economy in the next decade, and give us lots of reasons to be really, really positive about, setting down roots and building a future in Alberta. We should feel good about that. And finally, I'd have to say, Kylie really inspired me on this. We've got challenges abound in this province, but we've got great people here who are willing to do what it takes to change the world, just as she has. And back in 2012, 2013, she's starting Chic Geek. She's changing the way people see women in technology. She's breaking down barriers. She leads the way. If we all take the challenges we see and have an open mind to solving them differently, we're going to lead to better outcomes for our province, for our communities, for our children and our future. So I think we have a lot to be feeling really excited about in Alberta. And with that, if you liked what you heard today, share it with your network, subscribe, tell your friends. Thank you for listening, and see you next time on What's Next Alberta.